Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Mile a Minute Movie Talk. This is your host, Dyligent Picks, along with my co-host, Lucas
Hello.
of Ligure Films. How's everybody doing? We went on quite a long break. We apologize. We
Yeah.
decided to take vacations at exactly opposite times.
Yeah, I think we came back and then it's been like another month.
Yeah, we've been having a hard time scheduling our podcast, but we're excited to. We have a lot to talk about, so we're definitely excited to share what we've been watching. We're gonna have to schedule out some more of these real soon, but for now, some of the big topics, some more recent films that we both have seen that we're excited about include the new Spider-Man into this. Ooh, wait, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. My apologies. As well as a little film by the name of Sanctuary, which,
Yes.
if you don't know about it, you will learn about it. But yes, so what should we start off with, Lucas? What are you in
Um
the mood for?
I feel like Spider-Verse definitely.
All right, well, take it away. I have so much I can say, but I've honestly haven't talked about this movie too much in depth yet.
Yeah, so obviously the sequel to Into the Spider-Verse. And then
Yes,
this was Across the Spider-Verse. It's been I think the other one came out in what, 2019? 2018?
2018.
2018. Okay, yeah. So 2018, it's been about 5 years. 4 years, 5 years. And so it was definitely an interesting day. Like, where can you take that story? Obviously, it has to go in the multiverse direction, but it was definitely, I think, everything that you wanted from it in a film as a sequel to that one. It definitely does a lot that you don't think would happen or stuff that you weren't expecting, which I really liked. I didn't know which way the story was going to go, so it was definitely very interesting how they were doing it, who's going to be the villain, all this stuff, and so that's definitely what kind of like really made it for me. Is like there's all this mystery about what's going to happen, and they kind of spend like the first third of the movie dealing with Miles and his universe and all his stuff, and like catching us up on what happened, and like his family and all that, and that's cool. And then you kind of get into everything else, and like, okay, so it's like it was well paced, but the act structure is like pretty long for the first two acts, which I kind of liked. You're kind of like kind of have a lot of stuff going on, but it's not like too long, and that's kind of why I think they split it into two movies instead of one. But also, it feels better as a trilogy in general, I think.
Mm, yeah, it was. We didn't see this together, so
Yes, yeah, we did not.
I when the long-time Diligent Pick viewers may recall that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was my number one film of 2018, and I've been touting its praises for the past 5 years because I found that film to be just incredible. I was so stoked when it won Best Picture. It's really rare for
Yes, to
a
win Best
pick.
Animated Feature.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh no, no.
Best picture of the animated, and um, it's very rare for a non Pixar Disney movie to win that award.
Hmm.
So that was just really cool, and I think it's just one of those movies that has become such like in the last decade. It's referenced all the time in terms of its impact, not only in the animation industry, but you can also look at it in the way just superhero films are going with the multiverse. Like it kind of
Hmm.
really kicked off like this trend of multiverse movies. It seemed like every studio out there saw this film and was like, "We got to do that, but live
Exactly.
action." You know?
Yeah, it kind of helped elevate American animation storytelling a little bit. Um, and not always making everything that it has to be like a geared specifically towards kids for kids. There can be like more like mature, I guess, not in like, like all, whatever type of mature. I mean, it's just like a more like well made drama of some sorts. And I feel like obviously superhero movies kind of having a decent story structure, they're like kind of mirroring that in there. And a lot of that doesn't really get noticed by like award shows or just like the public. I mean, obviously they critically do well, but a lot of these don't do financially well or even like get that much notoriety, the more like all ages kind of animation. And so it's definitely been better since that came out, and kind of like, oh, not everything has to be like very like kid oriented in American animation as much for like the popular wide theatrical release ones. And so it definitely helped kind of show that there's a lot that you can do in that in America, where obviously you can do that. They just never do it as the studio executives, and trying to open the studio executive eyes and to do what a lot of every other country does with their animation style, and just have like a just a really fun story that
Yeah,
like all can enjoy. And
yeah. I think what I find so cool is that like when that came out, it wasn't the biggest box office success, but it did
mhm,
well.
yes,
But now we're seeing this new film just do exceptionally well at the box office. It's been praised, even better than the first film. It just retook the number one spot at the box office with The Flash just bombing to,
yeah.
but
The other side of the superhero coin.
yeah, but the other aspect here too, going back to what you were saying about the more mature animation. Yeah, it's interesting how you can have a movie like this be the number one film, and then you have a new Disney Pixar animated film, Elemental, that just came out, and that is also underperforming and not doing well. And there seems to be a case made against certain films like that are a little bit more family friendly oriented, that Disney kind of shot themselves in the foot during the pandemic and kind of trained their subscribers on Disney Plus to expect these movies to be like same day release, or
Yeah.
to not even go to theaters. There was like three straight Pixar movies that didn't even get a theatrical run, or were also on streaming during that theatrical run. And so now they're seeing the repercussion of that come into play with the box office revenue that they're getting here.
Hmm.
And so, it's just interesting that you can have two big animated films that are both likely going to be, in best animated feature nominees. Um, but one is doing exceptionally better than the other, just all around,
Yeah.
and the level of interest. Like I've heard no one share hardly any real enthusiasm for this new Pixar film. I thought on paper I liked the idea, I liked the idea of elements, and I thought the animation looked like a nice change of pace for Pixar. But I haven't seen it, and I just don't have this strong interest to go out and see it. But anyway, back to Spider Verse for a sec. So this new film, yeah, you're saying I think what I really did enjoy too was, as much as it does have the same animation style, it does feel like a step up in a lot of ways too. There are certain scenes in this film that just blow you away. The animation
Hmm.
is so fast. There's so much energy. There's so many things for your eyes to see. Your eyes get a
Yeah.
workout from this film. Like
Yeah. It
there's this.
is. Yeah. It is really just like the just immense like meticulous creation of like a frame by frame art piece put into this like 2.5 hour film. Like the different art styles, the different just framing, how it looks, very taking from its source material, different periods that they're focusing on, different things that they're specifically going for to give the viewer a different view on certain scenes, different emotions, different lighting, different coloring. It's just like everything is meticulously painted. So each scene is like an art piece at least. And like how they do the people from different periods, obviously, like the first one that you run into villain wise has a very interesting look because of where they're from. Uh, just the very encompassing, like epic shots of certain chase scenes, certain things happening. Areas are like very like built out, and like the backgrounds are just insane, and they're not what you're looking at. And it's just everything from front to back, up and down, the whole frame. Everything is just like perfectly, meticulously animated, and just like how they focused and why they spent so much time doing these movies is just how they animated it. Obviously, is just so just an upper echelon compared to anything that we've seen in like American animation for like how they do it, at least in a modern way in the like 21st century, like for this, the new tech, and it's just way just blows so much things out of the water. And like 2018 version of this movie, the Into the Spider-Verse was so good, but like this is just like even a different level than that, and that was like one of the greatest like animated American films. And I mean, honestly, this one's obviously one of like the not to give it too much praise, but it's like very visually, just visually alone, it's one of the best like looking animated films that has like been ever put to work, in my opinion. There's just so much going on, and you can rewatch it multiple times just to have different experiences, different things you notice, and it's just so vibrant and striking and engaging. Like the way that the film draws you into certain scenes and how you look at those scenes, and then you go to the next one and it's a completely different way that they're approaching you, and then you have to approach that scene differently visually. You're analyzing different things and it just looks amazing, and it keeps you engaged into what you're seeing as well as the story even more, because you're kind of like figuring out cell by cell while you look at that screen what is going on, just what's over here. Oh, I love how they have those little comic things that pop up, like the comic like details that they have, like, oh, this is what this means, and just like all this crazy stuff that's going on in each frame is just insane, and it's so just awesome to look at.
Yeah, and that's definitely, I 100% agree. It, like, when I really seek out an animated film, like, I'm always just truly drawn to the animation style. That's what I value kind of the most. And if it's aesthetically pleasing, if I like what I'm looking at, that really does add a lot to my opinion of the overall production of the film and just the film itself. Like, it drives my opinion way up if I'm like, this is just insanely like gorgeous or amazing to watch. um and yeah, it 100% steps it up another level from the first film. And it's just crazy to me because um it hasn't been that long. And I guess at this point, I'm still just amazed how, like, animation just looks so insanely good across, every medium of it
Hmm.
nowadays. We've seen insanely good looking stop motion, we've seen, rotoscope, we've seen hand drawn, we've seen CGI, we've seen everything now, right?
Yeah.
And I can't fathom how they can continue to make it look even better than it is. Like, at what point do our eyes gonna need some kind of upgrade to be able to see everything?
Yeah.
Like, because, like, am I gonna have to get LASIK surgery soon? Because if I need to get a little, human power up, some kind of thing, just to make sure I can catch every little thing, I'm willing to do that. Because it's just it's amazing. Yeah, that's just where I'm stuck at right now, is like, how do we continue to top it? Like, is that even
Yeah.
possible?
The tech is definitely like advancing, and like obviously like Pixar's really good in like doing their 3D stuff, and like there's some crazy advancements in that, like how they like single look like certain things in like Toy Story, like the hairs are like individual fibers, as I can say. But I feel like this is just like something I feel like a little bit different just because the style is a little bit more unique.
Yeah.
But also the story is just really well done, whereas like
Mm-hmm.
Pixar's been falling flat lately. It's like definitely more engaging, um, as you can see in the box office between the current Pixar movie and the
Yeah.
and Spider-Verse. But yeah, Spider-Verse is at like 600 million or something like that right now, which is insane. I mean, Puss in Boots did great earlier this year. It's a good year for like well animated movies. Um,
This is probably gonna go down in history as one of the best years for animated films, I think, because we not only have these, yeah, like, all the major studios are putting out, some of their best work, but then you have the international side. You have
mhm.
Hayao Miyazaki's final quote unquote film
Film, yeah,
coming out in July, and then you have Makoto Shinkai's film Suzume, which came out earlier this year. So
mhm.
it's just going to be like one of the best years for animated
Yeah.
films.
It's very like a global, like all the powerhouses are kind of kicking off at once, and they're all releasing films this year and around this time, and so you have like really good stuff coming out right now, and it's like a great year, as you said, for like animation, just because some of the greatest minds in animation, current day and even in history, are like putting stuff out.
Yeah. And just to add on what you said about the story, like that's the other thing. It's like we're mostly praising the animation, but it has everything. Like it has great
Hmm.
characters, it has great storytelling. Like even the slower parts of the film, when there's just some real like character drama, are extremely well done, and
Yeah.
like really caught my attention. Like a lot of the scenes, just the quieter scenes with Miles and his mom, or
Yeah.
like trying to figure out these family issues that he's having. Just growing up, he's a teenager. He's Spider-Man and a teenager. um, and then like I think the one thing I find the most interesting about this film, aside from like if I'm taking the film, like if I'm taking out the box office and the actual quality of the film as a whole, I find it really interesting how the inception of this film came to be. In the beginning, it was the planning was, okay, this is Spider-Man Across the Spider Verse, or Spider Verse movie part one, and so some of us, like myself, have been following that, knowing that this entire time
Hmm.
this is going to be like a part one of a trilogy of films.
Yeah,
But
that's what I heard as well.
you're right, and then at some point during this whole craziness of production, they decided they're going to officially give official titles to both the second and the third film. So, of
Hmm.
course, once they decided to do that, then marketing came out, and everyone assumed that this was maybe just a second movie. No one really knew this was a part one, or leading into a trilogy.
Yeah.
So, not to spoil anything, but there is, if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, they will say this on the consensus, but there is a cliffhanger. And
Yes.
it's a cliffhanger that I think bothered a lot of people because they were not expecting it uh, to end where it ended. It definitely goes that route of like, we're setting up for something really big and really
Yeah.
special.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like that third act at the end is very reeling you through the motions of setting that up. And it's not like elongating the message that you kind of already know. It's kind of dramatically setting up all the pieces that lead to what is going to be established in the third movie. And yeah, going back to the just writing, yeah, all the drama and all the dialogue is very like human, feels real, and it's like well done. You're like really drawn into these scenes between a lot of parental scenes with their kids that are like talking about different things with different characters. Um, Specifically Miles and his parents and Gwen and her dad. Those are some of them. You get more of like Gwen's story as well and what's Gwen been up to, and this whole like other universe kind of explodes in itself of like, oh, all this stuff is going on and you're learning about this, and it's just like really like well paced in how they introduce everything and how they're kind of unraveling all of this other stuff that has been going on for the last year in this universe. And it's like really cool. And like how they go through it, how they communicate with each other, and how they like kind of like built this society upon it. What has happened from the result of the first movies, cosmic events, as we could say. And so I really, it just kind of is very much like one of those films where you just want to know more and more and more. And so they're just giving you a lot of that in a well paced and timed manner that kind of just reels you along slowly. And you're just figuring everything out and start piecing stuff together. And you're trying to figure out why this character is being like this, what's this character stuff. And it's very well done in leading one incident into the next incident and patterning putting them in a pattern in a way, building up to what is eventually the lead into the third movie. And it's just well planned out and well pieced. Um, and if there's any like things that like might not make sense or whatever, they kind of like don't detract from that story as all in that much of a sense, unless you're really trying to be nitpicky. Because the story in itself is just like pretty well done, and you're just engaged in that the whole time. And that's like the best part of it, is just all these set pieces and all these characters going through the waves to set up what is going to happen at the end. And it's just like very like built upon going up this mountain to like this climax at the end almost.
Mm-hmm. And I do think it'll be really interesting when we look back after we've seen Beyond the Spider-Verse when that
Hmm.
comes out. It'll be really interesting to look back and watch this film again, or to just to like analyze it further and say, oh, okay, like now, like this, just to see how it all ties together, right? Because that's always the issue with the middle movie is until you've seen the full picture, you don't have a full understanding of what they were doing. And because like if you take the example of a great trilogy versus a not so great trilogy, you
Hmm.
see the middle film is either kind of like it's going to make or break things, right? It's going to change things too much in a bad direction, or it's going to change things in a good direction, and it's all going to connect, or it's not. And um, I just think what's also intriguing to me is this one we had to wait 5 years for this film,
Hmm.
but if I recall, when I looked up, the next one is coming out in March of next year.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so in that, knowing that, I almost feel like have been planning them and working on them both simultaneously, perhaps.
Yeah.
And
Because that's the only thing that would make sense, is if they were planning this as like one movie and then it became two, so then they just worked on it as like one giant movie and
yeah,
cut and did the first one. Though this one did get delayed, so there's a good chance that the other one might get delayed as well.
uh, well, and then there's if like let's assume it stays where it is.
Yeah.
If it's slated for March 2024, that does make me also think that, like, when we think of the quality of the animation, I don't think there's going to be a big jump in that regard.
Hmm.
But I do think they're probably saving their biggest guns, if you know what I mean. Like they're like as
Yeah.
amazing as those many of those sequences were in this film, I'm sure they're like saving like the best thing for last. You know,
Yeah, they have to
the
be.
yeah. So it's gonna be really cool to see what they do. Um, but yeah, and like you were saying, kind of in the beginning, like it's hard not to say it's like one of the best animated films of all time. I think that's
Yeah.
easy. It's easy to like to look at it on paper and say that it is. But I do think I'm gonna need to see it again. I'm gonna need to process it some more. I'm gonna need to see it at home,
Hmm.
and because I think my brain is still wrapping my head around this movie, like the
Yeah.
fact that it's even made. Like it's like
Yeah.
holy crap. So that's kind of where I stand on
Yeah, I
it.
definitely read around the same area. It's just, it's very much something you have to see. There's not too much justice you can do talking about it. It's very much, you have to watch the first one, watch the second one, and just see what it is, because it's definitely the upper echelon of just very animated filmmaking. It is like everything that you desire, and it's just so just ev- just so
It's a game
almost
changer.
speechless. Yeah, yeah. It's very much is challenging the whole industry to go towards and push those limits. Whereas thought in the past we've gotten to that point, it just keeps blows it all away, and it's just insane how well it is done.
And that's the thing though. The first film did those same exact things. It challenged the
Exactly.
industry, and they did all follow that film. It's like every time a new multiverse movie comes out, I just kind of my first reaction is like, oh, okay, now they're doing the Spider Verse thing. Like
Hmm.
that's kind of my first thought. It's not even like, oh, it's a multiverse movie. It's like, oh, okay, so they're making it like a Spider Verse movie. Like
Hmm.
it's just I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like it's one of those movies that's constantly referenced now in pop culture because we like you can never shake that first film's impact.
Yeah. Exactly.
At least in the past 5 years. We'll see 15 years if we're still talking about it this way, but yeah.
Yeah. Definitely a turning point in American like animation, and especially like studios' approach towards it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, we could probably go on and on about that one, but
Yes.
we only have so much time and so many movies. There are so many movies, so little time, as
Yes.
we all know. This next movie that we want to talk about is a very, very different movie.
Very different.
Very different than Spider Verse.
I don't even think it's in theaters anymore, unless there's it's in very select theaters.
It's in very select theaters. We
Yes,
happen
if
to
you live in a
catch
big city, it's probably near you, and that's about it.
we happen to catch one of the very last showings at our local theater where Lucas works,
Yes.
and we had a really good time with it. I will say, if is that okay to say for both of us? Because I had
Yes,
a good
yes, we
time.
had a very good time separately watching the movie.
We watched it together, but we yeah. So that's the difference here between this and Spider Verse is we saw this one together.
Yes.
Um, but this one I had no idea what I was getting into. So to say, okay, that's not true. I did
I read like the
watch.
description and I didn't see the trailer in a while. But
Yes,
I hadn't read the description in like a month, so I kept getting like the idea wrong of what it was.
I did watch Chris Stuckman's review, and that's really the only insight in this film I had.
Yes.
So I was somewhat prepared. Would you like to do the honors of going over what this film's about?
Yeah, so Sanctuary 2022, but released in 2023, was and is a film about a father who passes away who runs a hotel chain. And you follow Hal, who's played by Christopher Abbott, trying to end his long-term relationship he has with a dominatrix that's named Rebecca, played by Margaret Qualley of we could say Maid and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood fame. Also, Christopher Abbott, really good indie actor for the last 10 years, still doing indie, but some
might
crazy
recognize him.
films. Yes,
Might
yeah,
recognize
he
him
was
from
in
Possessor.
Possessor, James White. He was in the show Girls. He was in his first like feature film was Martha Marley or something and Marlene.
Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene.
Yes, he was in It Comes at Night is probably his biggest film he's been in, uh, theatrically wise. But yeah, he's been around and he was really great in this movie.
And so he
As
plays the son of
Yeah, he
the
plays the
father.
son who's now inheriting that hotel chain. Um, and so that's the plot is he's inheriting this hotel chain. And he's like, okay, well, I shouldn't, have this going on. Kind of got to end it and go on with my life. And she's like, no. After she kind of like realizes what he's doing, gives her some parting gifts after a session, and she's getting in the elevator and she's like, wait a minute. And she goes back in and she's like, I need more from you. And then it's kind of becomes this, as Stuckman said, and as it is, a chamber piece, kind of like Rope, to bring up a really older film, 1940s, with Hitchcock directing. And it's one of those set in one place kind of movies, 12 Angry Men style, and they're in this like really nice hotel room and they're going back and forth over he's trying to like, what do you want? And she's like, well, I want this. And he's like, that's ridiculous. And she's like, oh yeah. She's like trying to find collateral for like trying to get to the terms that she wants. But it feels like both of them are kind of walking around and tiptoeing around the actual thing that they both want from whatever is going on. And they're keeping back their true desires and putting on this facade. And so that's kind of like the whole film is this like combatants of them.
Yeah, uh, it's one of those movies where it's a mix of several things. It
Mm-hmm.
feels partly like black comedy, dark
Mm-hmm.
humor, partly thriller,
Yeah.
mystery, maybe even a little
Yeah.
bit.
Very like a
Um,
dark rom-com, dark
yeah,
comedy rom-com.
and I do think it's one of those movies that when you rewatch it, it'll become even funnier,
Yeah.
knowing how it all turns out.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but it is one of those things where you're constantly wondering who is telling the truth and what their true intentions are. And
Yeah.
because of that, that's what makes the film so engaging and interesting and thought provoking. Is you're following two people. One, you're not really sure if you like either of them because
Yeah.
they both have their let's just say questionable
Yeah.
characteristics.
Very, very flawed characters in who they
Yes,
are and just how they present themselves in the film. And so you're kind of like, who am I siding with in this?
Yes, but because the performances are so strong
Hmm.
and the actual characters themselves are so interesting because of those performances, the way they conveyed them, especially Margaret Qualley,
Yes.
she she was just enigmatic on screen. Like I was just waiting for anything she was gonna do because it was like that character. Even the way the shots of her in particular moments of the film, they do these things where they do these like intense close-ups either of her face or her eyes, and you hear this weird like suspenseful music rise. It's like every time she gets an idea, or
Hmm.
every time she's like trying to think her way out of a moment, um, it happens, and it's like as the film goes on, and that becomes a reoccurring factor. You start to like almost get a little anxious because it's like it becomes such a like okay, what is she gonna do next sort of situation.
Yeah.
Um, and but that keeps the film so interesting and enticing. And here's the other thing: its pacing is so great. It's such a short film. It's only like an hour and 36 minutes.
Yeah.
That by the time it's over, you're like, damn, like you either want more or you're exhausted because
Yeah,
it's
it's definitely like the ending like comes straight at you like an anvil from a building. It just plants as it all like comes together and like, oh, okay, this is what I was kind of understanding from the third act, and it's finally like, how is they going to get from this point to this point? You could kind of feel that that's what you wanted, but was he actually going to go that way and all this? But yeah, there's some great scenes in between there. The film, for what its content is, isn't very visually promiscuous, but it's very verbally. Um,
mm,
very sexual, but you don't really see anything, which
mm,
is the thing. At least nudity wise and stuff. But there's some great scenes. One where she says she has a hidden camera and he tears apart the apartment while she's dancing to music. Margaret Qualley really does like command the screen just exceptionally in this film, and she's like very steps into a role where she can like kind of spread her wings and very much be kind of super weird and quirky while also being like very commanding and assertive in what her intentions are, even though they're not really clear, but she's saying what she wants in those scenes. And so it's like really really kind just really interesting side that you haven't really seen her play as much, because she just hasn't really had a leading role as much in like a film yet. She has in show, but like this is really like her first like being in a role that has all these very interesting pieces that they're putting together in like who her background is or what her background is and who she is in the film. And that's what's really interesting is just like she's very much like a kind of parody of a femme fatale, but like because that's what she kind of presents herself as, like, oh, this is what I want and this is what I'm gonna get, and I'm beautiful and all this stuff, and I'm very, very striking and very like assertive, and then she kind of adds layers to that, and that's what's really makes her like change throughout the film and kind of carry the scene to scene is like what her actions and intentions that eventually get unraveled are.
yeah. Since she essentially has this hold on Hal, Christopher Abbott's
Hmm.
character, like he does a great job of playing that person who is just like he essentially gets trapped in this situation and doesn't know how to get out of it. You know, he sees himself um, freaking out about that hidden camera, like you were saying,
Hmm.
and essentially, questioning whether she's telling the truth or not. And there's a great back and forth on whether there is one or there
Yeah.
isn't. And he does a great job of being that helpless guy. And
Yeah.
but she does such an amazing job of just of never giving in to the situation, always putting more pressure on him to you know cut her a deal or to get her what she wants, right?
Yeah.
um but and then but I think the key thing about this film is like you can watch it and you can enjoy it. There's a lot of these films out there where you're into it and you're trying to see where it's going, and then the payoff is just not quite there.
Yes,
This
exactly.
this is one of those movies though where the payoff is there, and you know like once it's all once the movie makes it very clear by the end of the film what what was actually happening, what the intentions are, and it I think we both agree that it just had like the perfect ending for the story that they were trying to tell.
Yeah, exactly. It's like its ending is very much like ends in a way that you're like, oh, I love this because it ends like not a slap in the face, because that'd probably be like the worst thing for this film was to just kind of be like, haha, F you, kind of to the audience. Um, and instead, they actually like have something that's very like, oh, you're like, oh, I'm kind of happy about this. So you're like, oh, this is like very good for these characters that I've seen go on for like the last whatever. And so now you're kind of get that payoff. It actually has a payoff for like a film like this, whereas a lot of these kind of indie films sometimes fall flat on theirs because they try to be too out there, too experimental, or whatever. And they very much feels like you're watching a play that
Mm,
ends in a great way, because that's kind of how it presents itself, like not like a tragedy but more as like a romance, a spin on kind of like those melodramatic romances from like the 50s and all this stuff, and kind of getting these characters to be with each other instead of ending in a tragedy of some sorts. And it very much fills that uh, checklist. Like you're happy that they got to that point and it made sense for that point, and you kind of felt that from those characters the whole time. That's kind of what they wanted, but they were trying to allure the other one and trying to offset the other one and trying to outplay the other one, because that's kind of like the dynamic of their relationship, is that there's the dom and the sub, and now it's kind of like, well, I'm don't want this, well, but I've been in control this whole time, so we're kind of gonna have to find our way to get to this point and how we want to reinvent this relationship for the outside world. Essentially, they're trying to come out of that room together. At a point, you start feeling that from the characters, and you're like, well, how are they going to present themselves? How are they going to change this dynamic or reinv- reinvent it in a way that can be presentable of them in the real world?
yeah, like that sort of ends up being the ultimate like I don't know if I'd say goal, but that like that ends up being like the purpose of of their situation is like
Hmm.
they realize that I think they both do realize that
Yeah,
things simply
there's a scene where she's like, the only time I've ever felt myself is when I'm in this room with you, and they're like kind of talking about the only time that they've really been who they want to be is in that room. And so how can they be themselves
this is like the only
outside of
time
the room? Yeah, this is the
this
only time I've been happy. I left my
I'm not good at anything
husband.
else.
Yeah, yeah, there's what else do I want in my life? This is all I want from my life. So I've been doing in here, and how can we make that a reality in a way that is still a way that we can live our lives? How can we
Yeah,
transfer this to our real world lives?
yeah, and the way they handle it, I just thought was great because it was something I
Hmm.
like. That's the other aspect of it. You don't see the ending coming, and you don't see the outcome coming the entire movie. It all makes sense. It makes
Yeah.
perfect sense once you know it.
Hmm.
But I mean, speaking from just two people, but you know, I just feel like it's one of those movies where you're not gonna be able to predict how it ends.
Yeah. You have a
And
lot of reserves of like, are they going to actually get to this point where they're like can be together? Because you're like, you've been burned so many times. Um, so you're like, can they actually do this? And like, how are they going to get to that point? That's like the thing. You're like, okay, I think that they might do this, but how do they get to that point and make it an actually believable story? And
yeah,
that's kind of like the thing of the writing in it is so well done for just like being a movie of two people talking the whole time and just doing stuff to each other the whole time. It definitely does that well in that they are able to get from point A to point B to point C to the end and be able to keep that dynamic between the characters as well as make it believable.
yeah, and like you really did feel like you were watching like two real people.
Hmm.
The and you pointed out the like I'm not sure if you said it this way, but I know when we talked about it afterward, we talked about how it was almost came off as a stage play. Like it has
Yes, yeah, exactly.
it. felt like you were kind of watching like a 3 act play.
Hmm.
And I really appreciate that. I've seen similar examples of that in other films where like the actual director or the screenwriter was a playwright. So like
Yes,
that.
yeah.
So like you can visually see the influence of their craft, you know, of their expertise on screen in the way that
Hmm.
the film's directed, or you know, the cinematography, how it all lends to that. And you definitely get that vibe here, and I enjoyed that. Trying to think of what else. I mean, the score was also really nice, really good. Like, you had a good way of describing it. Like, kind of, is it? You felt like? Do you feel like it was kind of noir in a sense, or
Yeah,
just?
it kind of had like those later noir films that kind of are like riffing on early noir, the seriousness of it, and kind of have like a more playful tone to it. And it was kind of like that playful jazz, whereas like it's kind of like almost parodying the early like seriousness of the like black noir film, and where in kind of giving a little bit of like twang and like a little bit of more like playfulness to it, where it's kind of like enveloping the scene in a way that kind of like is kind of like a little goofy like exclamation point or question mark at the end. You know, you're kind of like "Bah-da-da." You're like, oh, this is kind of fun, and it's like it makes it more of like a fun scene because it's kind of steering you in the way of not taking it the wrong way. And so that's what really I liked about the score was that it's not like a demanding score either. It's very like low key, like classic, like 50s, 40s style, like noir, but like it has a very much playfulness to it that like really complements the scene in a great way. And it kind of finished that off certain scenes where you can start to hear it more and like, oh yeah, this is exactly what fits this point. And it's kind of like making my emotions get to the point where where I want them. You know, it's like they're right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think overall, like just you know, like the one thing that continues to fascinate me, one of the things that I love the most about movies is that you know, it, there's no one way to make a good movie, and like you know, there's so many because there's so many different genres and points and ways to express something. Like you can have a movie like Spider-Verse that is this like grand epic scale type of thing, and then you can have like a smaller movie like this that, but you can still say similar things about like you know it was amazingly well shot or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
But the way it's interesting how a movie like this sets out to accomplish something, if
yeah,
you know, and if it's able to accomplish that and accomplish those specific things very well, then that essentially means it's a very you know well made film. And that's like, to me, that's just really cool that you can just like have so many levels of what's considered to be like high quality or like the best of this specific realm of film, you know what I mean?
hmm,
and and like I haven't seen a lot of film, like I can't really think of any film that I can like 100% compare this to, other than other chamber pieces.
yeah,
But like even comparing it to those, it's not the same. You know, it's just not. So yeah, it's one of those I think is um, on paper you're not sure what you're going to get out of it, and you're not sure if the plot or the you know the type of people, the characters, whatever, are for you. But
hmm,
if you give it a chance, I think it's going to be a surprising, you know, especially the humor. It's a really smartly written film, and the humorous moments are really good. Like it's
yeah.
uh, so.
Yeah, that's definitely like the underrated part of it is just that humor lands in unconventional ways, and it just like very much carries itself throughout. And right when you feel like something might get too ahead, there's some they bring in something between the characters that makes it like funny, or it gives like a little offbeat to like what is going on. And it just has like this like good like not 100% commitment to the seriousness of it, whereas like one character's kind of always got like this kind of like goofy intention or something like that. There's a little bit of off key to like a lot of the dynamic between them, which makes it. not get like overly into like a thriller type of sense. It makes it more like kind of offbeat, and that's like the best part of it is like watching these player characters play off of each other and get to the point where they get to for whatever they're doing in that scene, and that definitely helps.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, definitely her command over him in a lot of the scenes too is like if something's getting to her head, she kind of just takes over and kind of like she knows how he works, so she can take control of what she needs to get what she wants or tone down the combatants of those scenes, which is really nice, and it very much is usually funny.
yeah. If you take anything out of this review, ladies and gentlemen, it is that Margaret Qualley is the future, and this is her rise to fame.
Yes,
We
yeah,
are
Academy
seeing.
Award within the next 3 years. I'm predicting it
Oh yeah,
easy.
if she gets
I
the
mean,
roles, 100%.
she's got the bloodline. It's gonna be her and Maya Hawke for like the next 3 years probably. They're gonna be like the two big female leads for like a lot of these modern cinema. I feel like they're gonna be in that conversation.
You
Nepo
heard it here
babies
first.
that are kind of good, actually good at their job and not there because I mean obviously they got help, but they're actually good actresses, and also they have very interesting roles that they're taking, which is nice. They actually are picking roles that are good and not like some mumbo jumbo TV drama that has 50 episodes that they can just get a paycheck for. So they're actually picking fun art projects, which is nice and gives us something to talk about
Yes.
because we are
Um,
not the ABC Good Doctor podcast. Sorry about that.
well, you heard it here first. Lucas is predicting Margaret Qualley
Margaret Qualley
takeover.
win by 2026.
There you
If
go.
I'm wrong, you can sit me down in a theater for 24 hours and I'll watch whatever the hell I want.
You
Or
guys
you
can
want.
come. You guys can come back and think Mile a Minute movie talk in the future. I'm trying to recall. I mean, you could be honest. Something there's a renaissance of nepo baby winners. I'm trying to
Yeah.
recall. We just had the actress from Everything Everywhere All at Once win. I'm blanking on her name.
Oh,
Everyone
Jamie
knows
Lee
her.
Curtis.
Yes. So hey, if
Yes.
Jamie Lee Curtis, she's paving the way, man. We're
Yeah.
gonna see. We're gonna
Bring
see.
them back.
Yes.
All the
Uh,
kids of stuff. And her mom's movies in the theater. I think her mom's in book club too.
whose mom?
Quayleys.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I forget her mom's name because she has her dad's last name.
yeah.
Um, okay, no, her mom is not in that, but her mom is in similar movies. I
Close
don't know who
enough.
I was thinking of. Yeah, I mean, when you're the child of two models, you're gonna look nice, and you're also gonna probably be a good actress, especially because her
Yes.
mom is Andy McDowell. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, Groundhog Day, Four
Oh, that's
Weddings and a
right.
Funeral.
Well, we have been watching a lot of stuff lately,
Yes, we have a
and
lot of movies that we haven't talked about, but we definitely have them if we want to talk about them outside of new releases, because all of them have not been, or most of them have not been new releases, or the other person hasn't seen it.
maybe what we should do is actually ask our audience which of these they want to see us talk about next,
Yes. So
because
the
we're gonna have
I
a
know
hard
the
time deciding.
yeah I know the three movies that we've seen together have been Mishima: A Life in Four Chapters, Paper Tigers, and Ricky O: The Story of Ricky.
I'm,
So
I don't know if any a lot of people have heard of any of those, but
if you like Survive Style 5 and the other and Party 7 who I talked about before and Peach Up Man and Jerk Pig Girls or whatever, Peach Up Girl Jerk Man, you'll like that movie because it is crazy. It is not the same style, but it is a movie that inspired
Mortal
like
Kombat.
Mortal Kombat and such. There you go.
Yeah,
I'm not going to go talk any more about it because we're not reviewing it. But if you want to hear of any of those movies in a review, we have watched them both. We probably will get around to at least one or two of them though, if
and
we don't have too many summer blockbusters to go through.
yes, and a couple other movies. We've seen. Lucas had watched The Fablemans and The Whale,
Yes,
both around Oscar season, and I did not. So I finally caught up and watched both of them. After lots of crying, I'm ready to uh,
digest.
digest and discuss both films. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, let us know which of these movies. Otherwise, we'll just pick, what
Pick
we're in
some
the mood to
randoms.
discuss.
Yeah.
But if there's any that are screaming out to you, shout out
Hmm.
to our buddy who requested Shark Skin Man and Peach Hip Girl and Fish Story. We haven't gotten
Yes.
around to watching those yet, but one of these days,
They're
we just
very close, I would say, on our movie watch list.
yes, we have a
Because
we have.
I haven't seen Fish Story, but I've seen Shark Skin Man and Peach Hip Girl. Um, back in like COVID, I think just right before, right around there. Someone requested it at the video store we met at, so I watched it then.
Oh,
Darren.
Darren! Shout out to Darren.
Shout out to Darren. Um, but yeah,
And
outside
then
of
we
those, we have our watch with us.
yes.
But this week,
So,
we have a definite and a tentative, possibly. I know both of us will see it within like the month, but I don't know if we'll see it next week. But our official watch with us is Past Lives, coming out this week. I know it came out like earlier for some places, but we're finally getting it at least where we live. And so Past Lives is I've related it just by reading it and seeing the trailer that we saw before Sanctuary, to a movie by this guy who directed Drive My Car, and I'm forgetting his name, so I'm going to Google it right now. Okay. Ryusuke Hamaguchi. He did a movie a couple years ago called Asako 1 and 2, and that's what Past Lives very much reminds me about. I saw Asako 1 and 2, and I loved it. Past Lives is another romance, just like that romance drama, about a man and a woman who are together, and then after decades later, she runs into her childhood friend, who she kind of had like childhood, romance and like we're gonna get married when we're older kind of thing with, and they kind of get run into each other after all this time, and that's very similar to to a degree. With Sako 1 and 2. And so Past Lives is kind of like a film in that style, and it's like getting crazy good reviews. It did really well on the festival front, and it's distributed by A24, so it's definitely got a lot of backing and a lot of good words. So we're definitely excited to see that one. And then our second one that we might see, but probably more or less next time, is going to be Asteroid City. I don't think much
mm,
needs to be said about that. Wes Anderson's new movie that's getting good reviews.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I love going to Wes Anderson films with pretty much no knowledge and
yeah. I've
just
seen the trailer, and the trailer's not telling, so I like it.
yeah. That's all I need, and I don't even need that.
Hmm.
So, um, on the other note, we are aware that a big film that a lot of people are looking forward to seeing is coming out this week. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Um,
Dial.
we probably won't be seeing that together, and I'm not sure when I'll be seeing it.
Yeah, I might see
But
it before work, but that's like we don't have the urge to see it.
yeah,
But
we
we
aren't
want to.
super yeah, exactly. We acknowledge that this is a movie that we should see, and
Hmm.
a lot of people are interested in seeing. We just don't have the same pulse at this time to see it like
Hmm.
immediately. I'm sure
Yeah,
we will see it
especially because
at
it's a
some
film
point.
that will definitely be around in theaters for a while.
Yes, and that so that is that is a good topic. Is like we know that certain movies, like these smaller movies like Past Lives, that deserve a lot more viewership and screenings than they're getting. We want to be able to support those
Yes, yeah.
and make sure we see them before they leave. Like if we didn't see Sanctuary the night we did, we probably would have never seen it or
Yes, yeah. It would
completely
have been
forgotten
definitely
about it. It would have just gotten
been
lost in the
long
void.
gone. Yeah,
You
another
know,
movie in Christopher Abbott's portfolio. That's good.
but we know there's a lot of films out there lately. So if you have any requests, we know that there's this new animated film from DreamWorks, Ruby Gillman, uh, Human Kraken.
Teenage Kraken.
Thank you. As well as The Blackening, which is getting surprisingly good
Yes.
reviews. I was not so sure of that one. I thought it. I mean, I sort of took it to the like of something like a scary movie type vibe, but it seems to be a little bit on a little bit different level than that, and it's
Hmm.
getting good reviews, so that's exciting. And then, of course, there's some other films like Pixar's Elemental. So
Yeah.
yeah, just let us know what you want us to watch because we like to watch movies together.
Yes, and we will be getting into some of those that have been requested. Otherwise, yes. Not too much in streaming news, I thought, except for that they're always taking stuff off. So be wary of that and
Yeah, your favorite show.
get your pirate ship ready to go sail the web degrees seas for whatever show you want before when it's gone forever from whatever service you want.
Yeah, just keep in mind your favorite show might no longer be available tomorrow. So just you
Yes.
know, just watch where you're
Hmm.
putting your monthly monies. You know.
Yeah. On that note, there was a funny thing where is it Zaslav who runs HBO
I think so.
Discovery? Um, the like three titans sat him down and had an emergency meeting about how he is for TCM. That's what it was. They were going to shut down like TCM because they did major layoffs, and so Spielberg, um, oh god, Scorsese, and I think it was like Guillermo del Toro or someone else, someone around there.
Yeah.
They all like had a meeting where they like ambushed him and like talked to him about that. So that'll be interesting if that results in anything. Probably not. But the biggest proponents of like film preservation and like making their own film preservation companies, especially like Scorsese, who like has been like remastering forgotten foreign films or like very sought after foreign films, um, and has a company that does that. Like very much good that those people are seeing uh, going out there and actually doing what they want. Trying to get these meathead executives to actually respect the art form of film. But you never, with all these conglomerates, words can only do so much. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, just know the streaming wars are over and they are officially all retreating and surrendering and trying to just not run out of money. And they're all going to join forces and it's all going to be cable packages
Hmm.
again.
Yes,
Just give
it
a.
is. Now that they realize that, oh, okay, we're gonna start seeing streaming services die off in the next 3 years. We're gonna start seeing major changes to it, as well as just like they're in the point where like, okay, now we need to start making money, but it's kind of a losing formula to begin with no ads. So it'll be interesting. A lot of free with ads, a lot of paid with ads, probably eventually.
It just
Um,
sort of feels like every streaming service is essentially just going to copy what every other service is doing
mhm.
to some extent. They're all
They're
going
all
to
blue
offer.
now too, except for Netflix. Kind of annoying. Netflix and Hulu are red and green, and then HBO was purple. That looked cool. Now it's blue, which I think is dumb. I don't care about 90 Day Fiance being next to my Criterion TCM movies. I'm trying to watch without a face, and I have to see 90 Day Fiance and all this HBO non HBO crap, all this Discovery stuff, and it's annoying. They got rid of the category bar. I'm angry. Zaslav,
Where
you
the
will hear
hubs
my
go.
rage. I'm gonna join Spielberg, Scorsese, and PTA. That's who it was. Paul Thomas Anderson. I'm gonna drive him there and drop him off so we can go yell at him again.
Nice.
But
You let me.
yeah,
You let me know how that goes.
yeah. Uh, there was one more thing I wanted to say, and I can't remember.
Well, you hold that thought because on the topic of film preservation, we had a number of Blu-ray releases this week.
Blu-ray
All
releases.
all 4K actually.
Ooh
We
la la.
had a big one. A little bias here, but Evil Dead Rise came out in 4K this week, which
Whoa.
I actually have. I'm just too lazy to grab from my shelf.
Happy to get the once H Hulu dump, I think it was supposed to be.
No, it was
Uh,
supposed to initially be
or was it an HBO
back to
dump?
streaming problems. It was supposed to actually be an HBO Max
Hmm.
exclusive
That's what it was.
streaming, and then Warner Brothers did a surprise trailer
And
to get
they
interest.
them, unlike Disney, Hulu, Fox, who decided that dumping Predator on or Prey on streaming was a good idea, and then saw Evil Dead make like $160 million on like a $15 million budget. They're like, oh wow, we made a bunch of money, good. And then they're probably really pissed because they're like, oh wow, we could have made the same amount of money, if not more, with Prey. Especially
Right.
because that I feel like
Has
gate
a
uh, gets a bigger audience, especially with its
yeah,
like, kind of presenting itself as an adventure film, adventure action.
yeah.
But yeah,
So that was
excuse
one
me.
title.
And then yeah, the H Evil Dead. What was I gonna say with that? Oh, also, um, kind of going back a little bit, but not really.
Yeah.
With the FNAF trailer coming out this week, that was supposed to only be streaming, and now is getting a same week release as its theater, but it's Peacock. So, but it's coming out, it's going in theaters and then Peacock like that same week. But
Speaking of Peacock, there is some news. They, um, if you were an Xfinity customer, you got Xfinity, you got Peacock Premium for free. That
mhm,
is now ending as of a certain week
yeah, I saw
shortly.
that. I got that email.
So bad news for Peacock or Xfinity fans who are getting Peacock
Mhm,
Premium for free. But I will say shout out to Peacock. You know, of all these streaming services, they're one of the few that's actually doing well
yeah, they've
lately.
been they've been kind of getting up there, but they're also, aren't they NBC Universal? So it feels
Yes.
like Peacock will just fold into HBO. Or sorry, Max at one point.
Right. Who knows? But yes.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. I think uh, there's definitely there's gonna be a lot of weird
Yeah, a lot of
packages and
stuff going on, a
bundles.
lot of interesting stuff, unforeseeable, possibly, disappointing, very highly likely. Um,
Well,
on that note of physical releases, getting back to Evil Dead, post Evil Dead, what's next?
yeah, we have a lot of older films getting the 4K treatment,
Hmm.
which is really cool to see. We have Creep Show on
Oh, nice.
4K. We
Hmm.
have National Lampoon's Vacation, the OG. We
Vacation.
we have Mallrats getting the 4K
4K. I
treatment.
have the Blu-ray. No.
Well, I think it's from the same source, Arrow.
Arrow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it might not be the biggest upgrade, but it's there.
It is crazy too because the Arrow one came out like in 2019, 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was kind of like, why did they even release that if you could have just done a 4K and Blu-ray at the same time?
That's been sort of the complaint.
Yeah, with a lot of these is that kind of what's happening. Uh,
And then lastly on my list, I had Waterworld, which I've never
yeah,
seen.
I think we had some Criterion for this month, but we already missed them. So
Yeah, this is all just this week.
yeah,
There's been
there was
so
some
much.
interesting ones that they did, but I don't remember what they uh, they had. So all
Um,
well.
and we can certainly we can do a nice highlight. Actually,
Oh,
next
here we
month
go.
we can highlight Criterion, especially because of their flash sale. So,
Yes, they did a Time Bandits 4K. That was the recent one.
ooh, yeah, yeah, certainly.
Yes. And then yeah, the stuff that we already talked about before. But yeah, Time Bandits. Oh, Branded to Kill 4K.
I will say I'm pretty excited to be a GameFly subscriber again because of those. They actually do get a pretty
Yeah.
good amount of 4K, especially a pretty. You know, they don't get every
Hmm.
small boutique label, but they do get quite a few of them.
Yeah. Shout out Gamefly for being now the last bastion of physical disc renting, because 4K streaming isn't good. Have you tried streaming anything on Macs? Doesn't work most of the time. Have fun with audio compression on most services. So shout out Gamefly if you want to sponsor us and give us maybe one free rental each. That is the bare minimum we'll want. But yeah, definitely check them out because DVD.com is dying. So
Yeah,
I'm
you only
surprised that
got to
GameStop is still alive, but yeah, they've been pretty good. He's been a sub for what, like 2 months now?
yeah, about my free trial just ended and now I'm getting two movies at a time for 19.95. So, I mean,
Hmm.
if I watch four in a month, that's $5. That's a rental. That's a
Yeah.
streaming. That's a new release streaming rental. It's
Hmm.
worth it and the
Yeah.
quality's
I
better.
mean, most of them are like 7.99, honestly, 6.99. You gotta wait a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
on the rental services at least. Voodoo sometimes you'll get like better deals, but I mean, from what I see, like on them, like what just came out this week, some other stuff, I was like looking, they were like 7.99, so I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
But yeah, I think that about does it as far as what I had on my list this week. Anything else that you had? Any last second? Last
I
minute.
think that might be it. There's nothing I want to be old man yelling at clouds about as of now, so I think I'm good. But yeah, definitely check out what we watched if you haven't, and watch with us this week if you can. I know some people probably might not have it, especially if you're listening internationally, but definitely check out that stuff if you can, and watch with us if you can.
Yeah, and of course, we, like I said, we love getting suggestions and special requests. So please let us know. We are gonna we won't forget those of you who have shared these films like Shark Skin Man and Peach Hip Girl. We have a list, and we will do our diligence, due diligence, to make
Mhm.
sure we eventually check some of these out. So,
Yes.
but yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time on the next episode of Mile a Minute.
Movie talk.
Woo!